Welcome to This Explainer. All right, I want you to picture this scene with me. It's a freezing winter morning in a small American town. A 13-year-old boy named Ethan is sitting all alone on a broken wooden porch outside a tiny house. The cold is absolutely biting, right? But his clothes are just old and thin. And worse still, his shoes literally have holes in them. Oh, and his stomach? Completely empty. Every single morning, Ethan sits there, and he watches the other kids in town walk to school. They're all wrapped up in these warm jackets, carrying heavy backpacks, holding hands with their smiling parents. But Ethan's baseline reality? It's entirely, painfully different. So to really understand Ethan's incredible drive, we have to look at the heartbreaking inciting incident that completely forged his mindset. Ethan's father had passed away years ago, which obviously left this massive void in their lives. And one evening, Ethan walks into the kitchen and finds his mom sitting quietly at the table, just crying. Sitting right in front of her is an overdue electricity bill, and in the cupboards, man, there was almost zero food left. Seeing his mother's tears of absolute desperation, that broke his 13-year-old heart. But, and this is key, it didn't break his spirit. Actually, scratch that, it did the exact opposite. It forged this ironclad promise in his mind. I may be poor today, but I won't stay poor forever.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. A promise in the cold.
To really wrap our heads around Ethan's vow, we need to look at the severe baseline of his poverty, 2. That number represents the absolute maximum effort a human being can typically sustain, because that's the number of jobs Ethan's mother worked just to barely survive. She was giving literally everything she had, working double shifts, and yet it still wasn't enough to keep the lights on or put food on the table. They were facing such an immense financial deficit that even with those 2 jobs, they were going to bed hungry on so many nights. It's just a stark, brutal reality of the unseen struggle they faced every single day. Which brings us to Section 2, the unseen grind. You see, Ethan didn't just sit around with his promise. The very next morning, his reality completely shifted into energetic hustle. He wasn't going to wait for a savior. He decided to become one. So he meticulously structured his days around some seriously grueling physical labor. Step 1, before school even started, while all the other kids were still snoozing in warm beds, he was out in the freezing cold delivering newspapers. Step 2, after school, while his peers were kicking back and resting, he was out pushing a mower across neighborhood lawns. And step 3, on the weekends, his rare free time was totally consumed by cleaning dusty garages and washing cars. Naturally, people laughed at him. Other kids cruelly mocked him, calling him the poor newspaper boy. But Ethan, he never argued back, not once. He just smiled, kept his head down, and flawlessly executed his routine. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive gap between Ethan and his peers. On one side, you've got your typical childhood distractions, right? Video games, comfort, hanging out. But on the other side, there's Ethan, standing there in his worn-out shoes, spending his very rare moments of downtime at the public library, completely devouring books on business, success, and leadership. Every single day, he was actively learning something new. He was making his mind sharper and stronger, while his body was out there doing all the heavy lifting. We can actually trace the compounding effect of this intense discipline chronologically. At 13, he was the mocked newspaper boy. But by high school, that relentless self-education pushed him to graduate at the very top of his class. No way around it. That academic excellence earned him a full-blown scholarship to college. And even there, he continued working part-time jobs just to support himself. Finally, post-graduation, he took all that acquired knowledge, the whole shebang, and started a small online business right out of his tiny apartment. Section 3, pushing through the darkness. Now, we often think hard work and education guarantee this sort of instant, magical success, right? Well, the transition to adulthood is actually incredibly unforgiving. The universe doesn't just hand you a prize because you suffered as a kid. When Ethan started his business, year 1 was an absolute disaster. He lost money, and the exact same money he had painstakingly scraped together from all those part-time jobs. And year 2 was somehow even harder. This was the true emotional abyss. This was the point where the brutal struggles of his youth seemed to have been for literally nothing. It got so incredibly dark that his own friends looked at his failing business and flat out told him it was time to give up. There were absolutely moments when life felt incredibly unfair, moments when Ethan genuinely, deeply wanted to quit. But he remembered his mother's tears at that kitchen table. He anchored himself to a core mindset. Success belonged to those who kept going when everyone else stopped. So he completely refused to fold. Instead, he leaned in.
He worked harder, he learned more, and he ruthlessly analyzed and improved upon every single mistake he made during those disaster years.
Section 4. The ultimate reward. Because after pushing through the absolute darkest parts of his entrepreneurial journey, the dam finally broke. His business absolutely exploded, and customers started pouring in from all over the country like wildfire. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it took exactly 5 grueling years of iteration, failure, learning, and rebuilding from that tiny apartment to get there. 5 full years. So no, it wasn't an overnight success. But after those 5 years, that struggling, hungry little boy, he became a millionaire. The kid who used to get laughed at was now a man who inspired thousands. But check this out. His ultimate reward wasn't a luxury sports car or some giant mansion for himself. No way. He bought a beautiful, brand new house for his mother. Do you remember those tears of desperation over the overdue electricity bill back when he was 13? Well, when Ethan handed his mother the keys to her brand new home, tears filled her eyes once again. But this time, they weren't tears of pain or fear. They were tears of pure, unadulterated happiness. He had finally fulfilled his promise.
Section 5, your blueprint for success. Why does Ethan's story actually matter to you?
Well, because we can extract a core, highly actionable blueprint from it. Dream big, even if your current reality is small. Work hard to drown out the doubt and the mockery. Stay humble when others laugh at you. Stay disciplined, executing your steps every single day. Keep learning, trading your distractions for education. And above all else, never, ever quit, especially when you hit those inevitable disaster years of 1 and 2. So the crucial point is this. Being poor or starting at a disadvantage is absolutely not a life sentence. And early failures are never the end of the road unless you decide to stop walking. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Your current situation does not define your future. I mean, Ethan had nothing but holes in his shoes and an empty stomach, yet he built a life that inspired the world. So, looking at your own life, your own goals, and your own unique obstacles, what will you do today to change yours? Take this blueprint, start building your own future, and never stop. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you in the next one.